welcome to our hearing this afternoon. We are officially calling this to order. This is the public hearing of the Committee on Sustainable Development Goals, Innovation, and Futures Thinking, joint with the Committees on Public Services, Local Government, Health, and Demography, and Finance. This is now called to order. Today, we'll discuss the following bills on water sustainability in connection with the ongoing water crisis experienced in different parts of the country. So we have my bill, which is Senate Bill number 16, Water Sustainability Act. We have Senate Bill number 310, an act to promote rural health by providing an accelerated program for the construction of a potable water supply system in every barangay in the country within 3 years. This is authored by the Senate President, Miguel Zubiri. And then third is the Senate Bill number 1048 on Safe Drinking Water Act, which is authored by our Majority Floor Leader, Senator Joel Villanueva. Also included in this agenda is the privileged speech that this representation delivered on World Water Day on March 22. I'd like to recognize the presence of Senator Tulfo, and I'll give you the floor, sir, after I finish my opening statement.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
So just some data that we have, and our objective is to get a meaningful and interactive discussion with our resource persons who are the experts. I always come to a hearing with the assumption that I am not the expert. So I want to be educated. I will not argue with you. I will have hopefully good discussions with all of you. Administrative note, wag niyo na akong basahan ng mahahabang speech because we can read mahahabang position paper because we can read that during our downtime. I want to make the most out of the time you came here, which is less than 2 hours for us because we have a session at 3 o'clock. So the details we have is that according to the National Water Resource Board, an estimated number of Filipinos, 11 million, lack access to clean water in the country. So 11 million lack access to clean water. And therefore, these families are left to rely on water sources such as deep well, springs, rivers, lakes, and rainwater, which are not necessarily potable, and in many cases are not reliable. So we have 11 million who can wake up in a day and not have water to drink that day or to use for whatever other reasons they need to use their water. And so the lack of these facilities has also forced many to defecate in the open, rising water contamination and the spread of diseases. You will notice that in this hearing, and I will call you as your time to speak comes up, unlike most hearings where they only focus on the agency involved, this being the Committee of the Sustainable Development Goals and Futures Thinking, we try to bring in all the agencies involved, and you're very welcome to recommend other experts in the field or even non-experts who should be listening to these discussions, because we cannot find a solution unless all the various agencies that in some way are involved in the availability of clean water supply are present. And that is why DSWD is here, because it is your job to look after the welfare of the people. So these 11 million people, hindi mo naman sila mapapainom kung abutan niya lang natin ng AIX, di ba? So that's why you're here, no? And DOH is also here because I'm not aware what is the depth of your involvement in the discussion on the sustainability and the infrastructure and the investments that are needed for water, but you must be part of the discussion. So that's why, and of course, DOST is another agency whose role is very important because one of the possible wars in the future is the availability of water. So if you ask me if we should be training students for ROTC or training them to learn how to innovate so that they can find and ensure that the Filipinos have clean water, I would rather do the latter, but that is my personal opinion. So on that note, just to add a few more details, according to the numbers given by Manila Water Company, almost 1.7 cubic meter per second of water is being lost. So we always talk about supply, but we rarely talk about that loss. So I want that to be part of the equation. The leaks were said to be due to antiquated pipes, which Manila Waters and Maynilad and the Metropolitan Water Works and Sewerage System, MWSS, have already started repair works on. So I'd like updates on this as well. All of this comes alongside PAGASA's announcement of El Nido, which the country will be experiencing in the next 3 months until next year. The heat index will remain at 40 degrees Celsius in the next few weeks. The water level in our 5 major dams, namely Angat, Ipo, La Mesa, San Roque, and Caliraya, continue to decrease. And finally, in my privileged speech, I mentioned how water shortages affect women and girls disproportionately because customarily it's women and girls ang nag-iigib. Not to say na hindi nag-iigib ang lalaki or ang tatay, pero traditionally, yun yung kasama sa roles ng babae nag-iibgib. So in that sense, we want to be conscious of that. So again, this being an SDG hearing, we take note of SDG 3, good health and well-being, SDG 5, gender equality, SDG 6, clean water and sanitation, SDG 10, reduce inequalities, and of course, sustainable cities also, because what we really want is that every city and community have their own reliable water supply. So I look forward to an insightful and fruitful discussion. I will be very conscious of the time. Again, like I said, we have session at 3 o'clock. So in order to give due respect to the time that each one of you have devoted for our hearing, it is my goal to finish this hearing at the proper time so that each and every one of you can speak. We have other resource persons that we purposely move to the second hearing so that hindi kayo nag-aantayan. We are very mindful of your time and we thank you for the time that you're here. So I will give the floor to Senator Tulfo, but Secretariat, may I ask that for every senator that may join us, ma-remind lang sila of our time constraints, no? Because I need to stick to the agenda and we cannot be distracted given we have less than 2 hours. So Senator Tulfo, if you would like to say a few words before we call on the resource persons.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Madam Chair. Good morning, good afternoon, Madam Chair, Senator Pia Cayetano, and good afternoon to all our guests. Before anything else, I commend this committee for taking up this concern that is undeniably felt by millions of our people because water is life and clean water means health. In 2004, we enacted Republic Act 9275, or the Philippine Clean Water Act of 2004. It was a declared policy that we formulate a holistic national program of water quality management that recognizes that water quality management issues cannot be separated from concerns about water sources and ecological protection, public health, and quality of life. Almost 20 years later, we are still here. 11 million Filipinos still do not have access to clean water. And according to a recent Philippine Statistic Authority report, a total of 53,066 Filipinos died between 2010 and 2019 due to waterborne diseases such as typhoid and paratyphoid fever, bloody diarrhea, cholera, viral hepatitis, and leptospirosis. This is a major health concern, a critical public concern. Sa aking programa po, madami na po ang lumapit sa akin tungkol sa problema nila sa tubig. Mga water interruption dito sa Kamaynilaan, lalo na ngayong kasagsagan ng tag-init. Masakit po talaga ito sa kanila. At kung problema din sa Maynila ang tubig, mas lalong problema ito sa ating mga probinsya. Kamakailan lang, may nilapit sa akin na reklamo. Hindi lang Chocolate Hills ang chocolate sa Bohol, pati tubig, kulay tsokolate. Sa isang barangay sa Bohol kung saan nagkakasakit ng mga tao. Ako po mismo ang nagpa-test ng tubig upang malaman kung anong problema. At napag-alaman ang tubig ay positibo ng E. coli. Napag-alaman ko na ang water provider nila ay LGU, Local Water Works System. Matagal na po ito na problema pero hindi nakakaalma ang mga tao dahil isang pamilya ang humahawak noon pa. Takot daw sila sa pamilya may hawak nito. This is the reason, Madam Chair. And you said, bakit andito po mga taga-DOH? For me, it's very important that they're here. DOH because sa problema po dun sa Bohol, walang gustong umaksyon tungkol sa maruming tubig. And the only hope that those people are relying to ay yung mga taga-national government because the LGUs does not cooperate. Mismo sila nagsabi na contaminated na ng E. coli yung tubig doon pero they're not doing anything. That's the reason kailangan ditong DOH as well as the DNR. Sa Bacolod naman, madami din po ang nagreklamo ng inaasahan nilang pag-aayos ng water supply nila dahil sa privatization ay walang pinatunguhan. Murky and ice-tea colored water is the daily agonizing experience by water consumers in Bacolod City. And worse, in some instances, no water at all. Poor water services na nga ay increased water cost pa. Ibig sabihin, wala na nga tubig sa gripo, ang mahal-mahal pa ng singil. Paano? Well, there was no water rate hike, their water bill increased because households would normally have to leave the faucet running for hours just to get rid of the turbidity and see some clean water. 3 years since the privatization, the district continued to show poor water services in the city. Ang goal to privatize ito mga water utility services natin ay mapagandang serbisyo sa mga tao. Pero bakit nagkakaganito? Ilan lamang po ito sa mga kwento ng ating mga kawawang mga kababayan. Ano ang ginagawa ng Local Water Utilities Administration? LWUA LUA was created in 1973 to revolutionize water supply provisions in the countryside. Pero ang nagrevolusyon ngayon ay mga tiyan ng ating mga kababayan dahil sa pagkonsumo ng maduduming tubig. Ang problema po kasi ay ang traditional water sources tulad ng wells and springs ay kadalasan kontaminado ng harmful bacteria, parasites at iba pang pollutants na nagdudulot ng serious health risk sa mga residente. We have to reduce the reliance on groundwater, deep wells, as well as manage surface water supply. We have to explore other options for our people. We have to make use of technology that's readily available. Isa na ang solar-powered system. This system has lower operating cost and minimal environmental impact compared to traditional diesel-powered pumps. Pwede din natin i-explore ang rainwater treatment facilities. Nag-file po ako ng bill tungkol dito. And that is why I'm in full support of the bills we are taking up today in the hopes that we can find better options for our people. Madam Chair, I hope with your guidance, we could solve these problems of our people. And while it will take time to fully resolve this problem, the best thing we can do is to start the ball rolling now, laying out concrete plans and ensuring its execution. Salamat po, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Senator Tulfo. If His Honor would like, and of course with going through the proper channels, the appropriate committee where his bill was filed, this representation would be happy to include the rainwater bill in this hearing if it has not been taken up by any other committee. As we take cognizance of the fact that there is a bit of an overlap, no, because when it comes to the creation of Department of Water, I think there's another committee handling that, and I don't know off the top of my head where His Honor's bill is filed, but this representation is offering to include it if it would please His Honor, and again, like I said, go through the proper channels later on. Thank you. The concerns raised by the gentleman are concerns also shared by the chairperson. In fact, I kept my speech short, but I'd like to commend His Honor for including the rate of illness that mostly infants and young children suffer precisely because of water that is not clean. It is the main reason for us continuing to have a high infant and child mortality rate. Children who die of waterborne diseases. So on that note, my last before we start, I have the opening statement of our Majority Floor Leader, Senator Joel Villanueva, and I will insert this into the record, but let me just highlight some points. Like I mentioned earlier, His Honor, Senator Joel Villanueva is the author of Senate Bill number 1048, or the Safe Drinking Water Act. And he takes note that Pag-asa recorded the highest heat index at 42 degrees centigrade recorded in Agusan del Norte, Northern Samar, Pampanga, Zambales, and Ilocos Norte, and even in Pasay. Meanwhile, 43 degrees centigrade was recorded in Pangasinan, Albay, and Davao del Sur. Unfortunately, despite our country being surrounded with water, majority of Filipinos still have no access to safe drinking water, a basic human need, especially in this hot and humid weather. So this is the statement of the majority floor leader, and I will insert it in its entirety into the record. So on that note, let me tell you our flow so that we can, as I said, at least have all of our resource persons here today speak. First, we will start with NEDA, then we will go to DNR. After DNR, Department of Health, then DOST, then Department of Social Welfare, MWSS, and National Water Resource Board. Tama? I didn't forget anyone. So those are the speakers for today, and I will manage this time so that we can finish everyone. As the chairperson and only having one other senator here, of course, we can ask clarificatory questions, but I always ask my colleagues that if it will be lengthy, then we'll have to push it to the end, again, just to be able to follow our agenda and let all our resource persons speak. So let's start now with NEDA, Mr. Francis Brian Cobales, who is the Assistant Director for NEDA Infrastructure. You are supposed to discuss the Philippine Water Supply and Sanitation Master Plan, correct? Okay. And then be ready, DNR.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and good afternoon po, Senator Rafi, and our colleagues present here today. So I will be discussing very briefly about the Philippine Water Supply and Sanitation Master Plan. Next slide, please. This is the outline of my presentation. Next slide, please. So just a bit of a background there. This is the current state of the water supply and sanitation sector. The chair already mentioned a while ago about the state of our water supply and sanitation. As we can see, we still haven't reached universal access. So marami pa po mga kababayan natin nga nabanggit po rin ni Senator Tulfo ang walang access sa safe water and sanitation. And marami rin po sa ngayon ay nag-defecate pa rin po in the open. Next slide, please. So just to show po yung institutional fragmentation po na hinaharap po ng ating sector. As we can see here, there are a lot of agencies across the bureaucracy with functions related to water. So oftentimes this result in inefficient and mismanaged water resources. So wala rin po tayong single repository of data, and oftentimes yung programs and projects po natin in the sector are uncoordinated. Next slide, please. So we formulated this plan in coordination with all the water-related agencies in the government to have a single direction for achieving our targets in the water sector dahil wala pa nga pong Department of Water to oversee all these projects and programs. Next slide, please. So previously we had a separate roadmap for water supply and sanitation. So what we did here was to consolidate the two, and this will serve as a guide in achieving our targets in the water sector, specifically in universal access to water supply and sanitation. Next slide. So the main agenda of the master plan are these 8 key reform agenda. So we have here establishing effective sector institutions. Kasama po dito yung pag-address po natin ng fragmented institutions natin. So ito po talagang ina-advocate po dito sa KRA 1 na to yung ating pagbuo po ng Department of Water. And then you have strengthening the regulatory environment. Kasama po dito yung pagbuo rin ng independent regulatory body for water supply and sanitation. And we have here effective ensuring effective services balancing water supply and demand, building climate resiliency, enabling access to funding and financing, isa pong malaking problema sa sector. And of course, yung supporting mechanisms like yung sapat na data and of course research and development. Next slide please. So, nabanggit po rin ni Madam Chair kanina yung pagbuo po ng DWR. Ito po talaga yung what key reform agenda 1 aims to achieve po, no. Sa ngayon po kasi wala po tayong overall apex body to really coordinate the entire sector in an efficient manner. So this is one of the priority legislation po ng executive branch nasa PDP po natin 2023 to 2028. Nasa SONA rin po ng ating presidente. And we noticed that there are already 9 bills in the Senate po and numerous bills in Congress po that aim to do this, to establish this body. Next slide po. So this is just indicative requirements po no, nung master plan natin. This is just a notional amount that was estimated using unit cost po. No. This is the estimated amount to achieve yung ating universal access to water supply and sanitation. So 1 trillion po over the next 10 years. Next slide po. So just to share with you a development po in the sector, no. Total nandito naman po yung DNR. Next slide please. Recently the President approved the creation of WRMO, which will be responsible for the integration and harmonization of all government efforts and regulatory activities. Kasama rin po sa mandate po ng itong WRMO is to push for the creation of the apex body, which is yung Department of Water and yung ating regulatory commission po. So I've been signaled po na time's up. So yun lang po. Thank you. Yes po, ma'am. Yes
Sir,
po.
last slide.
Thank you.
Ikaw naman, para namang may utang pa kami sa'yo eh. Okay ka na naman, tapos
sakto
na
lang
naman.
po, sakto.
Sakto lang. O yun, perfect. Congrats. May questions ako pero I'll hold it no in the interest of getting a bigger picture no. Thank you very much. So who did I say was next? DNR. And Yusek Rodriguez, you will
Yes.
speak on behalf of DNR. Okay.
Yes,
And then
Madam
after
Chair.
that, please be ready DOH and then to be followed by DOST.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, Honorable Pia Cayetano, the Honorable Senator Raffy Tulfo, and to our partners from other agencies. I'm Ignatius Rodriguez, DNR USEC for Special Concerns and Legislative Affairs. I'm with Dr. CP David, who is the USEC for Integrated Science, who is the department's technical expert on water resource management. Also joining the DNR team is Dr. Bill David, the Director of the National Water Resources Board. The DNR fully supports Senate Bill 16-310, 1048 relating to ensuring the safe and clean drinking water and for Filipinos. Just to share relevant information, which was partly mentioned by our friends from DOH, on April 27, 2023, Executive Order number 22 was issued creating the Water Resources Management Office, or WRMO, in the Department of Environment and Natural Resources. The WRMO, in coordination with all the stakeholders, shall primarily be responsible for the integration and harmonization of all government efforts and regulatory activities for the availability and sustainable management of water resources in the whole country. The department lauds the proponents and supports the passage of the bills and does not interpose any objection to the passage and looks forward to its role as the said bills further empower all water-related agencies to perform their mandate of providing all Filipinos with safe, clean, and affordable drinking water. Should you require, Madam Chair, USEC CP David can explain the general plans and priorities of the WRMO. We are also ready to submit to the Secretariat our detailed position paper in the interest of time. Thank you, Madam Secretary.
Very briefly lang, Dr. David, no? You're a doctor of what?
I have a PhD in environmental science and geology.
Okay, wonderful. It's nice naman to know. So we have experts here. So just very briefly, no, this again, this is an overview. Again, I want everyone to be able to speak, but what will the WRMO be prioritizing, and is it a stopgap measure while we anticipate
Mhm.
a department of water to be established? Is that correct?
Thank you.
So then what would the priorities be?
Sure. The WRMO, as created by EO22 last April 27, you can think of it as, I don't see it as a stopgap measure, but definitely it works on a very short term. No, it doesn't look at medium or even long term at this point in time, because as you mentioned, the water crisis is already happening. And therefore, some of the solutions need to happen, not next year or 2024, 25, but this year.
And again, I do have a rule. I try to let you finish, but
Okay.
I just want to park this so you can answer it also
Mhm.
later on. So since you've already responded to my main concern, which is gaano kalawak yung sakop niya, and you said
Apo.
it's meant to be immediate concerns,
Correct.
then I'll need you to answer, or somebody in DNR to respond to. So who's handling the long term? Okay.
Okay. Currently, the WRMO consolidates some of the water agencies that our friend from NEDA mentioned that it's not connected, no? Aside from the 6 agencies that are already lodged in DNR that has water-related functions, for example, watershed management, water quality management under EMB, we now include within the WRMO our friends from LUA, the Network of Water Districts, NWRB, of course, and LLDA. The priority efforts of the WRMO would be to resolve some of the internal issues between these government agencies. Now, truth be told, even if we belong to the same government, there are conflicts, no, between these agencies. And now that we belong to one umbrella, hopefully we will be able to resolve that. So that's priority number 1. Second priority would be existing water projects of government. Not many people know that this year marks the year where the largest funding for water supply happened. No, a total of 14.6 billion pesos is earmarked, no, for water supply projects just for this year. And just to show you how the magnitude of this funding for this year, the amount is more than the total amount of water supply projects from the last 10 years. No, Salin Tubig, W3P, and so on and so forth. And so it's a huge task. It's lodged currently under the DPWH and the DILG, but since the creation of the WRMO, both departments have sought the help of DNR to manage these 1,374 barangay water projects. The third, yes,
That
ma'am,
whole amount, and how much was it again?
14.6
14.6
billion.
billion.
Mhm.
That is specifically for
Water supply.
barangay.
Mostly barangay, some municipal projects.
So you said 1374.
1,374 projects all in all across Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao.
And can you just elaborate on that? Like what exactly is it? What kind
Most of the projects, Madam Chair, would be in the provision of water through deep wells using solar-powered pumps. And the supply would be for anywhere from 1,000 people to about 5,000 people, no, barangay level.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
And then finally, the third prong in WRMO's plans, no, short-term plans, would be to engage all stakeholders, meaning the academe, our researchers, NGOs, and even the private sector, no, to help in the provision of water to our communities. That's all, Madam Chair.
So, okay. So to be clear, does the sustainability issue fall on priority number 3, or that's still not covered?
Sustainability is actually covered in all three, even in number two, wherein we try to implement government projects. The problem we had in the past was when we provide infrastructure and then the infrastructure actually breaks down after a few
Okay.
months.
So
No,
in that
because
sense, there's a sustainability component now
yes,
to address that
the
short-lived
sustainability issue.
intervention.
Correct.
Okay.
And the sustainability issue there is that we provided funds for capex, but there's no funding for OPEC,
Maintenance. Okay.
for maintenance.
Okay.
And if you will ask me, Madam Chair, I believe that water, as provided to our communities, it cannot be completely free because anything that is free is not valued. And therefore, based on their capacity to pay, they would have to pay for the water that is provided to them through these projects. And for that funding that we will actually gather, that will be the seed fund for the operational expense of these infrastructure. No, so that's the general plan.
Sige. I still need to discuss more on sustainability, but I'll let you go now again in the interest of time, no? Okay, thank you. So we're good, DNR. I'll move on. Okay, so let me call on DOH, Dr. Vianzon on, yeah, there you are, Division Chief of Health Promotions Bureau, and then please be ready, DOST.
Yes, good afternoon, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, Senator Tulfo and everybody. On behalf of the Department of Health, we recognize that the three bills presented here, which are SBN 310, SBN 16, and that first one, SBN 1048, all have the same goal as far as Department of Health is concerned, and that is to promote and ensure safety and quality of drinking water. It may be addressed differently objectively based on the content, but at the end of the day, the common goal is really to have uh, safety and quality of water for all the communities it will be serving. For specifically for SBN 1048, which is the amendment of Code of Sanitation, just to update the body, we are now looking into updating it for this year, hopefully to attune it to the current times because the last revision, or not last revision, but the last version was in 1976. So medyo matagal na po talaga, Senator. So it's high time that we re-amend this. For SBN number 310, we definitely support this, but on the premise that it should be following the Philippine National Standards for Drinking Water. I think this is where the Department of Health can play a big role because it's the one that sets the standards of what quality water is, of what safety water is, and should be potable for everybody. And for the last Senate bill, which is on the framework and which is proposed by the Madam Secretary, by the Madam Senator, definitely the Department of Health also supports this, and we believe that a single agency to regulate water and sanitation service delivery should be created. It also considers a comprehensive water data quality that looks into a comprehensive information system to determine the water and sanitation coverage, including water quality source data. On the aspect of the FATS, or the Philippine approach to total sanitation, this is basically a guide for the local government units to see that the community and its sanitation status are on the graded aspect, meaning to say that eventually all communities or all households in the locality will now be abandoning the wrong practice of open defecation, given the reality that open defecation still plays a big role in the contamination of our water sources. So hopefully, in the long run, all municipalities, all provinces should be free or zero open defecation because they have already abandoned that poor practice of excreting anywhere in the bush. Then the Philippine approach to total sanitation, Your Honor, is that looks into a grading period, a grade 0, grade 1, grade 2, and grade 3. I will not elaborate on the specific grades, but most importantly is the fact that when we want to go into zero open defecation, all households should have their own sanitary facilities or at least access to sanitary toilet facilities. And sharing may be allowed, but eventually sharing will not be continued because what is important is that every community or every household has its own access to its own sanitation, basic sanitation facility. So that's for it, Your Honor, for the Department of Health. Thank you po.
Thank you. Later on, balikan namin kayo kasi I think yung concerns na nakarating kay Senator Tulfo is directly related to the lack of those facilities. And when we want our people to know kung sino yung malalapitan nila, I think it also has to be clear kung saan yung sa inyo, sa DOH, on policy, at saan din yung LGU dahil ang implementation is really with them so that magkaroon din tayo ng clarity, or if there are confusions as as we recognize is a fact. Sinabi na sa atin ngayon sa hearing na even the agencies are not working together as harmoniously as possible, then we want to be able to address that, no? So balikan namin kayo dyan in the interest of getting some answers to this very troubling issue. So I'll go now to DOST. Yusek Maborang, you'll be the one to speak on behalf of DOST.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Magandang hapon po sa ating lahat. I'd like to highlight three major trusts of the Department of Science and Technology relating to water in general. Next slide, please. The DOST has various completed and ongoing initiatives in response to the government's call for action towards achieving water security. And with the direction and guidance of our Secretary, Dr. Renato Yusulidum Jr., the DOST is further intensifying efforts to maximize the use of science, technology, and innovation to achieve the said goal, recognizing the critical role of water for wealth creation, wealth protection, promotion of human well-being, and sustainability of environment and communities. We already have a number of technologies and knowledge and practices or protocols developed to address gaps and support bigger initiatives in various aspects of water, resource management, distribution, and applications, among others. For DOST developed and funded or supported initiatives alone, a number of useful technologies and innovations are made available for wide deployment, and details are provided in the compendium of water-related technologies and in the DOST Tech Hub, an online repository of technologies which can be accessed by the public. The department's Community Empowerment through Science and Technology, or the SES program, and the recently launched Smart and Sustainable Communities program are among the best or the platforms being utilized to facilitate the deployment of these technologies to the communities, including the geographically isolated and disadvantaged areas, or GIDA. To support various water-related research and development initiatives, quality monitoring, and even enforcement of related policies, the DOST is providing water-related calibration and testing services through its regional standards and testing laboratories, which are managed with the DOST regional offices through the regular and specialized testing labs of DOST Research and Development Institutes and partner laboratories, both from the government and private sector locally and abroad through the One Lab network. To date, One Lab is composed of 56 ISO 17025 accredited member laboratories, which include DOST and non-DOST laboratories, government and private laboratories from local and abroad, which are interconnected through an online platform to facilitate seamless referral of samples within the network. The provincial S&T offices of DOST are also equipped to receive and facilitate referral of samples to suitable testing laboratory within the One Lab network. Now, to coordinate various water-related R&D initiatives of the department and to promote and increase the participation of stakeholders on the programs and to build on the local capabilities and expertise, the department initiated the establishment of the following water-related niche centers in the regions for R&D or NICERs. First, we have the Smart Water Infrastructure Management R&D Center, or the SWIM, implemented by Isabela State University, Cagayan State University, and Quirino State University. The other is on Coastal Engineering and Management R&D Center, or COSTER, implemented by the Mariano Marcos State University main campus. Another would be on Mountain Engineering, centered towards sustainable infrastructure and upland water security program, or the Bundok, implemented by University of Cordillera and St. Louis University, together with Kalinga State University, the DNR, and the Watershed and Water Resources Research Development and Extension Center. Another would be on Center for Lake Sustainable Development, or CLSD, implemented by Laguna State Polytechnic University and UP Diliman. The last is on R&D Center for Environmental Technologies and Compliance, implemented by Polytechnic University of the Philippines, University of Diliman, and Adamson University. With the support of the government, policymakers, partner agencies, and stakeholders, these NICERs are envisioned to grow and mature into national research centers or institutions to lead in the continuous development of technologies and other innovations, Madam Chair. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Sige, again, I have questions, but I'll save it till we go around. Okay, thank you. Here, okay. But I just want to comment that I'm very happy that you are using the state universities. Over the, I don't know if it's been about a decade, but the UST has established very good relations with our state universities, and I'm very happy that did not exist when I was a new senator. So I'm happy to see that research funding is going into the state use. And so later on, my line of questioning is more like, ano yung final outcome that we expect, diba? I just don't like those research papers filed away. It should contribute to the solutions that we're looking for, but I'll hold that for later. So, thank you everyone for sticking to your time, suggested time constraints so we can finish everything. The SWD is next, and ASEC Irene Dumlao has the floor, and then please be ready MWSS and then MWRB.
Good afternoon, Madam Chairperson, Honorable Senator Pia Cayetano, Honorable Senator Raffy Tulfo, all invited guests, good afternoon. Foremost, we wish to express our profound gratitude for inviting the DSWD to discuss its plans to help those who will be affected by the El Nino phenomenon and to provide wider access to safe and potable water. Concerning the request of the committee to discuss plans and assistance to those who will be affected, we wish to state that last month, Secretary Rex Gatchalian met with the disaster management group of the department and all our regional directors to ensure that funds and other relief items are prepositioned strategically in the DSWD warehouses and are readily available for immediate augmentation to local government units. This in our effort to assist at-risk populations who will be affected by the dry spell, especially the farmers and farm laborers. The El Nino phenomenon is one of the concerns discussed also in the Social Protection Strategic Planning held last week, wherein the Social Development Committee, Subcommittee on Social Protection, committed to working together and look into policy interventions that can mitigate the effects of El Nino, as the phenomenon will actually affect livelihoods. So we're looking at introducing drought-tolerant crop varieties, expanding irrigation, expanding social protection coverage, providing social transfers to protect vulnerable populations from welfare losses during such a phenomenon. Now, on the full implementation of social protection floor towards universal access, we would like to mention that the DSWD has actively implemented programs promoting access to potable water, proper sanitation, and good hygiene practices. Our efforts have actually raised social awareness, capacity building, and self-reliance for many Filipinos, especially those in impoverished and marginalized areas. Evident to that is the inclusion of a module on the Pantawid Pamilyang Pilipino Program Family Development Session on water, sanitation, and hygiene to promote the importance of access to potable water. It also aims to trigger 4-piece beneficiaries to demand their household community potable water system and to inculcate the value and practice of sanitation and proper hygiene. The DSWD is actually working with the DOH on this matter. Congruent to this also is implementing the Kapit Bisig Laban sa Kahirapan comprehensive and integrated delivery of social services that uses participatory situational analysis tools to assess the condition of the community through a community-driven development approach. And among the sub-projects prioritized is essential social services, particularly community water systems. We would like to mention, Madam Chair, that as of April of this year, more than 4,000 completed water system sub-projects under Kalahi-SIDS have benefited more than 546,000 households in 3,626 communities nationwide. Now, on the concern of sustainability, we would like actually to mention, if you will permit us, that DSWD cannot overemphasize the need to involve the community in the project planning, designing, implementation, and management. And the promotion of community ownership and accountability leading to sustainable and well-maintained community water system, of course, is vital. And this is consistent with the community-driven development approach espoused by the Kalahi-SIDS. That's it for the DSWD, Madam Chair.
Thank you. You said more than I expected, which is good. Kasi normally, sanay ako makarinig lang nung mga interventions pag nandiyan na yung calamity. And what I really want to hear is some of the things that you mentioned in the short time you had, which is the long-term interventions that you're doing, you mentioned with DOH. So we'll try to dive into that a little bit more later, depending on our available time. Thank you. So next would be MWSS Engineer there you go. Sorry, hindi ko nabasa yung sulat ng staff ko. Engineer Cleophas.
Leonor Cleophas.
Yeah, no, letter O yung basa ko, Cleophas. Kaya I look there na lang. You have the floor, ma'am.
Yeah. Good afternoon, Madam Chair, and thank you for inviting MWSS for these very important bills that are large. We have submitted our position. And very briefly, we want to inform the Honorable Chairman of the MWS initiative to mitigate the impact of the El Nino and also our water security legacy plan. Under the directive of the President, we have to adopt a whole of government and whole of nation approach and institute protocol based on scientific long-term processes and the establishment of the El Nino team. Madam Chair and Senator Rapi, for the information, we are serving 20 million population. We have 3 concessionaires. One is Maynila. That one is the shaded green. And the Manila Water, our East Zone concessionaire, shaded blue. And the red is the whole province of Bulacan. We are serving 22 water districts, giving them treated bulk water for the whole province of Bulacan. For the information, our next slide, our Metro Manila's raw water sources is coming from the Umiray, Angat, Ipo, Lamesa system. We are getting 90% of our water supply for the whole areas that I have mentioned. But also we have abstract water from Laguna Lake. We have the Putatan Treatment Plant 1 and 2 and the Cardona Water Treatment Plant. Ongoing construction is also coming from Laguna Lake, is the East Bay and Poblacion. We also developed the Wawa Tayabasan system. Right now, we have the 80 million liters per day from Tayabasan Weir and the ongoing new Wawa Dam project. For the long term, we are doing our Kaliwa Dam project. Every hour, we monitor the elevation of Angat, Ipo, and Lamesa. Next slide. And for the immediate action by NWSS and its concessioners to have a business continuity in times of summer and also the upcoming El Nino, for Maynila, we have constructed packaged water treatment plant, especially in the area of Cavite. And we have developed our new water. This means that we recycle water from our new wastewater treatment plant, and making sure that that complies with the Philippine National Drinking Water Standard. We also get the approval from NWRB to develop our existing deep wells, so that if there are some shortage of water, we can tap the deep wells. We also instructed the two concessionaire to have extra effort in the recovery of NRW. With the revised concession agreement, the non-revenue water is now a target and being penalized under the revised concession agreement. For the affected areas, especially in the area of Maynilad, there is a deployment of water tankers and installation of static tanks, so that people will be able to really determine where to get the water. And also, for the Putatan 1 and 2, we know that there is a big problem on that. MWSS is taking a drastic action by inviting the Public Utility Board of Singapore to have a third-party assessment of the Putatan water treatment plants being operated by Maynilad. On the part of Manila Water, they continue to have 24 by 7 supply of water. And they also constructed the Marikina Packaged Water Treatment Plant, and also the East Bay, which is located in Pakil, also drawing water from Laguna Lake. We have 25 million liters per day. And also the Kalawis, this is the Wawa Dam, and refurbishment of our existing MWSS existing deep wells. For the immediate action by MWSS, also in terms of the El Nino, incoming El Nino, the possible conduct of cloud seeding operation with partnership with Pag-asa and the Department of Agriculture. We have also have several advocacy video and also our assistance to the National Irrigation Administration, considering that Angat Dam is a multi-purpose dam and it also supplies water to irrigation. Next slide, next slide. Okay, these are our advocacy video and brochure in times of summer. Honorable Chairman, we also have the water security pillars of MWSF. We have laid down our water security roadmap. Number one is re-engineering of raw water conveyance. These are water conveyance that was laid in 1930s, and we are now in the process of renewing and replacing the old tunnels and aqueducts from Angat down to La Mesa. We also have the short to medium term as approved by MWSS Board of Trustees to allow our two concessionaires to develop the small to medium water sources. But for the long term, MWSS is constructing the Kaliwa Dam. Right now, Kaliwa Dam is 22%. After the 7.5 years or almost 8 years of talking with the indigenous people and other permits that has to be acquired. With the next slide, you can see in the table that these are our water source roadmap that will deliver additional volume of water every year, and that will take us up to even beyond 2050, Madam Chair. So this is the program of MWSS in terms of water security roadmap. Thank you.
I have a lot of questions there too, but I'm looking at your presentation. Thank you for all the details you provided here. Let's just go to our last resource person, then we can open the floor for questions and discussions. From NWRB, Dr. David, you have the floor.
Yes, Madam Chair, good morning po, and of course kay Senator Idol po, Rafi Tulfo, good afternoon. The National Water Resources Board, on behalf of Water Resources Board, no, we support po no, the proposed bills as proposed by the Senator Juan Miguel Zubiri and Senator Joel Villanueva regarding the proposed bill in providing wider access to safe and potable water up to every barangay of our country. And as well as the proposed bill by the Honorable Chair on an act providing framework on water sustainability, which we believe will provide a long-term security for water resources for our people. Our specific comments for this proposed bills, Madam Chair, were already forwarded to DNR, considering that the NWRB is an attached agency of the DNR. As an additional information, Madam Chair, the National Water Resources Board has prepared what we call a water security roadmap, wherein in that roadmap, we outline several action plans under several themes on providing water security for economy under a water, energy, and food nexus. Likewise, securing the environmental requirements of our water resources, both for groundwater and surface water. And likewise, the sustaining water supply for our domestic demand, both for the rural and water requirements, including sanitation, and as well as the resiliency of our water in the building or development of appropriate or resilient water infrastructure, and protecting, restoring, and enhancing the natural storage of our water. And of course, similar in support of the NEDA's Philippine Water Supply and Sanitation Master Plan. This the action plan also supports some reforms in the water administration, including the creation of apex body and some regulatory reforms also, Madam Chair. And with that, we would like to summarize that in order to ensure water security for sustainable development, the need to manage the water supply in the exploration and promotion of alternative water sources, such as rainwater harvesting and the reclaim of wastewater, proper water demand management in collaboration with the national government agencies, as well as the academe, in the adoption and development of water-efficient technologies for industry and services. And of course, I think the recently issued Water Resource Management Office will address the issue on the governance of our water resources under an integrated water resource management framework, and under the PDP 2023 to 2028, the big issue or requirement of water infrastructure and development of infrastructure for the integration of flood use with proper flood control and optimization of our country's water resources. And more specifically, Madam Chair, as our colleague from NWSS has outlined earlier, the NWRB is also closely working with NWSS, NIA, and NAPOCOR in providing access or addressing the requirement of Metro Manila, particularly in their water requirements, which being supplied by the Angat Dam Reservoir, Madam Chair. I think that's all, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Before I thank you, Dr. David. Before I give the floor to Senator Tulfo for further questions, just want to clarify that itong creation ng WRMO, how does it envision NWRB? Kasi parang na musical chairs lang ang words natin doon. Water Resource Management Office. And then this one, which was created by a PD, so matagal na tong NWRB, is National Water Resource Board. Not very different in terms of nomenclature. So
The difference.
what can they not do, or what I noted your priorities, I wrote it down.
Yes.
So how will their work now How will they
Thank
continue?
you, Senator. The role of NWRB stays as what it is right now. They are a critical part of the WRMO. There are no functions. Actually, for all agencies that are now attached to the DNR, there are no functions that were lost because of the WRMO. What we are doing is coordinating their functions so that in a way we march at the same beat.
WRMO is more like the conductor. Ganun na lang,
Yes.
in a way.
Yes.
In a way.
Correct.
Okay, because I just don't like having to, if I don't want to see agencies that are not going to function, no? If something has to be set aside, which probably will happen when the department is created, if it's a priority, then it probably will be created. But in the meantime, it's a conductor. Okay, so Senator Tulfo, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Dalawa lang pong question ko. First, I would like to direct my question to Dr. Rosaline Vianzon. Dr. Vianzon, recently ako po'y nagpa-test ng water supply sa Bohol, particular na po sa Balilihan, Bohol, kasi I received complaints from residents there na yung water supply nila ay marumi, and they showed me some videos, kulay tsokolate nga po yung mga tubig. So after testing, lumabas nga po yung result. Ang sabi po mismo ng provincial health official nila doon na contaminated ng E. coli. Hindi lang po malaman kung yung po ba ay galing sa feces ng tao, hayop. Groundwater po yun. Now, ang tanong ko po, tama ho ba yung sinabi niya na kailangan ng 3 testing para muna bago magpalabas ng announcement sila para sa kanilang next course of action? So, yun ho ba tamang procedure? Another testing pa and another testing, meaning 2 more testing?
The fact po na nag-positive na siya sa unang test is already a signal na hindi siya pwedeng inumin. Dapat nga po yun ay ititreat po yung tubig, meaning to say, i-disinfect po kasi nakitaan na siya na positive with E. coli. And E. coli, sir, usually comes from human excreta. So malamang po yun, may mga dumudumi mga households at yung dumi po nila pumapasok doon sa water system na yon. Kaya siya nako-contaminate. But nonetheless po, pagka siya ay positive, ang una pong gagawin doon ay parang ipaanunsyo po na talagang kailangan mag-observe sila ng proper way of disinfecting itong kanilang tubig. Simple boiling po sa isang household will be very useful, and yung pong tinatawag naming chlorination process po will be useful in terms of really killing the bacteria that has caused the contamination. And then after po nun, titest po uli para malaman po uli kung pwede na po siya inumin po na as usual po. And then it has to be regularly tested. Yun po yung nasa aming protocol na it has to be regularly tested po para nakikita kasi maaring siya ngayon ay positive, tinreat natin, nag-negative, pero after next week, baka mag-ulit po yun. So nandoon po yung regularity of testing, which is very important po. And lastly po, in all the water providers po, we're really recommending them to have this so-called Water Safety Plan or WSP, na kung saan po, yun yung magiging guide ng ating mga water service providers para malaman nila yung kung ang kanilang siniserve na tubig ay of good qualities and of good quality and of safety. Pag may mga breaks po or parang hindi nila nasusunod dun sa kanilang plano, that calls for replanning and then looking into the interventions, bakit hindi po nagagawa yung dapat pong nakasaad dun sa kanilang water safety plan. So mahalaga po na may mga water safety plans po ang ating mga water service providers, kahit po ito ay LGU manage or barangay manage, community manage, whatever is the management po ng water service provider, that plan is very crucial po to lead and to guide the providers in terms of how to keep their water provision to the community safe and of good quality. Thank you po, Your Honor.
Isa na lamang po, Madam Chair, para kay Dr. Vianzon. Pwede ho bang pakialaman niyo po at paimbestigan niyo po itong nangyari ngayon sa Balilahan, Bohol? Kasi I was trying to contact you guys tungkol sa issue na ito. But we did have a hard time na getting in touch with anybody from the DOH. Kasi nga po, marami na nagkakasakit doon sa lugar na yon based on the complaints that we receive, and yet mabagal po yung kilos ng mga otoridad doon. Pwede ba panghimasukan nyo ito? Itong nangyayari ngayon sa Balilahan, Bohol, na deklarado talagang contaminated na po ng E. coli. And another thing also, tama lang hubang proseso yon na sasabihin po ng mga health officials sa isang probinsya na they would not divulge information such as yung nasabi ko na contaminated ng E. coli, tinatago po nila unless meron daw po good signal from higher authorities. Was that properly handled when they dealt with us?
Sir, yung pong sa ni-request nyo, we'll take note of that and we'll coordinate po sa aming mga regional coordinators diyan sa Region 7 because Bohol is Region 7 po. So, Balilahan.
Balilihan po. Balilihan, Bohol.
Okay. Sige po. Then number 2 po, it's also necessary that in every municipality, meron silang tinatawag na Local Drinking Water Quality Committee. This committee is really a group of locals po, headed usually yan by the mayor himself or by the local chief executive, na talagang pinag-uusapan po nila mga issues regarding water, not just the finding of being positive, but even po yung access. Pinag-uusapan din po dyan sa committee na yan, at lalo po nitong recently may mga outbreaks na nangyari, that will be the proper venue po na kung saan idinidiscuss locally yung ganitong mga issues para lahat po ng sangay ng gobyerno will be involved in undertaking and providing the correct intervention.
Doktora, the problem is, yung mga taga-LGU mismo ang nireklamo dahil sila daw po ay naging pabaya at sila po ang nagpapatakbo ng maruming water system doon.
I see.
That's why I was asking you, requesting from you to investigate immediately kasi nga po at stake dito yung kalusugan ng mga residente roon. Sinabi na ho mismo ng doktor nila doon sa probinsya na contaminated ng E. coli, and yet doon po ako na-alarma nung sinabihan ako na kailangan another 2 more testing. So sabi ko, paano kung nagkasakit na nagkamatay ng mga tao, ba't kailangan pa na another testing? Munti ko lang sabihin dun sa doktor, kaya inumin mo muna doktor yung may E. coli, tingnan natin kung matibay bang tiyan mo. So anyway, Doc, paki-imbestigahan lang.
Yes po, Your Honor. Tatawagan po namin kaagad yung ating regions po.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
And
With your permission,
go ahead po,
on
Madam Chair.
this exact topic, I'm being informed by my lawyer that NWRB gave a notice to the same municipality that you're referring to explain their extraction process their extraction process. Can somebody educate us on that? So meron na palang. So I think what you were asking for is who is that agency? Kasi nga, ang gulo eh. Who is that agency who will now oversee the municipality? That's what His Honor was informing Dr. Vianzo na, teka muna, kung mismo yung municipality ang nirereklamo, mahirap na masolve nila yon. And so it turns out that NWRB has asked them to explain. So can you elaborate? Do you know anything about this, Dr. David?
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair. Regarding the issue about this, when we sent to the local government unit of Balilihan, I think it's regarding the issue on the extraction point of where Balilihan, the local government of Balilihan is extracting or getting their water. So it's more of
That is related to the sanitary issue?
not necessarily. Di pa po, Madam Chair. Di pa po. It's more on the right to use of water. So meron pong issue. So nagkaroon po ng complaint ngayon sa NWRB. So which are educating po ngayon,
Okay.
Madam Chair.
So then thank you for that quick response para mabilis tayo. So who will now answer this question? On the complaint that the source, and it's not the same source, the source of this water being complained is not the same source. It's a different problem. Saan daw ang right nila to extract, but is that the source of the problem?
Madam Chair, excuse me.
Yes,
Isang source na po, groundwater.
groundwater.
ang
So within
pinanggagalingan.
the site,
Yeah.
within the municipality.
Karamihan po dun sa Balilahan, groundwater po ang
Okay.
source. At wala ho silang ginagamit filtration.
Okay. So iba pa palang issue yun. So when the municipality cannot when the municipality is being held accountable, then who? Kasi I'm asking you because I can forward my own assumption, but since Dr. David, you're the one telling us about the orchestration now of WRMO. I will listen to you first.
Actually, sir, may konting relationship to dahil yung sinasabi ni Dr. David din po pala siya, no? Ay naghahanap ng panibagong source ang buong munisipyo ng Balilihan na para hindi na mag-rely dun sa mga shallow wells ng
There
mga
seems to be an
barangay.
acknowledgement that there's a problem with the source,
That's true.
and that's why they're finding
That's
another
true.
source, which mukhang hindi nila pinaalam, kaya ngayon nagre-reklamo.
Meron lang konting
The source
issue,
is
but I
true.
think that's a more sustainable source than the shallow wells that the barangays are using.
But is there a grievance mechanism? That's the question eh. Is there a grievance mechanism when the municipality's source is doubtful? So wala tayong question na naghanap sila ng ibang source, that's another problem.
Mhm.
So the question now is where do the people go to? Because I would imagine that this is one of more than maybe, sana hindi many, pero baka dumami pa yung ganyang klaseng tanong. What is that mechanism? Do they go to court? Or is there an administrative process that can be availed of first?
The water supply system of Balilihan is LGU run. There are different systems. Some are water districts, some are private. No, so the first line of defense, kumbaga, would be the LGU. Now, if they are not able to solve the problem, then they go to DOH. No, actually, kahit at this early, yung water quality kasi for drinking water is under the purview of DOH. And so it's between the LGU and the DOH to resolve the matter.
Kasi, Madam Chair, from what I've heard and understand, nagkaroon na ata ng demandahan or filing of cases against some people sa LGU, sa Office of the Ombudsman, at hanggang ngayon hindi pa ho nare-resolve yun. So habang sila po'y nag-aaway doon, kung ano pa man yung agenda nila, anong reason, ba't silang didemandahan, nagreklamuhan, I think the DOH should get into the picture and the DNR. Ang importante rito yung clean, potable water ang kailangan ng mga tao doon. Hayaan na po natin yung away-away nila. Okay, doon po yung sa kaligtasan ng mga water consumers ang much concerned ako.
If I may, Madam Chair, some light at the end of the tunnel because Balilihan nga has water quality issues. For this year, as what I was mentioning, 14.6 billion in water supply. There's if I'm not mistaken, 30 million allocated for Balilihan alone for
Okay.
water supply. So we will make sure that the issues in terms of water quality will be resolved through these projects. That's for this year.
So for the meantime, Dr. Vianzon, pwede ho ba kayo mag-issue na ng advisory para sa mga residente ng Balilihan because ayaw po mag-issue ng provincial health officer doon na ito ay may E. coli, contaminated ng E. coli itong water nyo per testing done mismo ng mga taga-LGU. Wag muna kayo uminom yan, painitin nyo, pakuluan muna, wag nyong gamitin yung diretsong inumin, etc. Kasi ayaw po mag-issue nung provincial health officer. Kasi sabi niya, kailangan 2 pang testing bago daw sila mag-issue ng advisory. So, baka pwede niyo nang pakimasukan to kasi kayo nasa national government.
We'll look into the issue, sir, but definitely po yung in terms of the treatment, actually DOH po ang nagpo-provide ng treatment ng mga ganitong klaseng mga tubig po eh. And then of course we also issue advisories in coordination with our regional counterparts. And even po yung pagtetest po, yung mga kits na ginagamit, testing kits, binibigay po yun ng DOH to really ensure that there's regularity of testing para makita po na talagang tinetest nila at talagang always provided po sila ng safe water. So these are po yung binibigay ng DOH. But nonetheless, sir, we'll be looking into the issuance of an advisory. Thank you for the reminder, sir.
I think we can clarify this further, Senator Tulfo, no?
Go ahead po.
when you responded no to the question by saying na DOH din naman ang nagbibigay ng testing and treatment, ang ibig sabihin ba ganito? Pag nag-test ang water supply na may E. coli, may madaling treatment yon such that if the treatment is done, you test again and there is a possibility that it is potable again very soon within a short period of time. Is that accurate?
Actually, ma'am, the treatment mentioned here is the chlorination.
Correct.
Opo, so
Simple yon,
yes, opo,
chlorination.
yes, it's
And and so within a matter of a few days after the chlorination, it is possible that that water is potable. Is that correct?
Ite-test po siya ulit to
Correct.
determine.
But my
Opo.
question guys, is it okay, so let me rephrase. It is tested, may E. coli. It is treated by way of chlorination, as you mentioned. And then it will be tested again. So my question is, pagka-test ulit nun, it is possible that it would be negative for E. coli and it can be drinkable already. Possible na mangyari yun.
Yes, ma'am.
With a
Opo.
simple intervention of chlorinating the water.
Yes, ma'am, for a
So,
temporary period.
For a
po.
temporary period. So, may logic naman pala, nasasagot naman ang munisipyo na sandali lang itetest namin ulit. Tama. Pero I think ang concern ng residents, in the meantime, anong iinumin namin? 'Di ba? So, I think these are communication issues that can be, like for me, hindi ko alam yon ha? I'm not a scientist, that's why I love to be educated. Hindi ko alam na by a simple chlorination, pwede palang ma-address ang E. coli problem. Pwede pala. And how many days does that normally take? Is that consecutive days of treatment?
Ma'am, yung disinfectant tablets po, bababad lang po yun once ma-dissolve po siya. And then it will now be...
Hours?
Yes.
Even hours? Oh, so, like I said, kahit ako, hindi ko alam yon.
Mhm.
So, lalo naman yung mga tao, di ba?
Exactly.
How would I know as a lawyer, I'm not a scientist, and you can even be a scientist but have another expertise na isang lagayan lang pala ng tablets yon, potable na yon, di ba? Siguro ang gusto nila mangyari, which I've seen in Singapore, by the way, yung new water, iniinom mismo ng proponents ng recycling water yung tubig. Lalagay nila sa bottle yung tubig na galing sa sewage na dumaan na sa proseso, inumin nyo. Sa sobra kong believe dun sa process, ako ininom ko. Because I'm a believer of science, no? Because I believed in the science that was shown to me. That's me. Others will not drink it. So siguro ang gusto nila mangyari, makita nilang inumin din ng mga opisyalis nila yung tubig na yun. Yun siguro yun.
Correct, Madam Chair. Nabanggit niyo po, Dr. Bianzon, yung chlorination. So hindi po to ginawa ng mga taga-LGU doon. I haven't heard of such thing na bibigyan silang tablet para ilagay sa tubig. And this has been happening, Madam Chair, for so many years. At kaya nga sabi ko, nagkadimandahan na. So hindi po nila ini-introduce ito. Dapat they should have done this long time ago, but they didn't. Now, saan po magagaling yung chlorination process, yung tablet na inilalagay sa tubig? Sino magdi-distribute noon? Is the DOH or the LGU?
We provide po yung tablets pero at the household level na po para ready to drink na po sa mga households.
Household level.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, pero do they know this, no? Kasi it seems to be a communication
Wala
issue.
po akong nanig. Ganon.
And maiba lang ako dun sa situation na pinresent sa atin ni Senator Tulfo. How prevalent is that? Such that, can we have commercial ads on that? Sa show, baka sa show niyo po, pwedeng magkaroon ng commercial na
Pwede po.
nakikita na. Tapos ako, guess mo ko, iinumin ko yung tubig na yon. Basta
Sige.
promise nyo na ganun talaga
Basta
yun.
talaga safe.
Do it because people have to understand. So, I will do it. If you tell me that is the process and it will be clean, I will do it. Diba? Pero people have to understand kasi otherwise, paano sila maniniwala na malinis na yan kung hindi na ipapaliwanag ng maayos?
Yes, actually, ma'am, it's an issue din po yung communication, you're right po. Kaya advisories would really be very useful. And during world events po, na World Toilet Day and World Water Day, these are our advocacies that we're telling them. Yung iba po kasi, parang ayaw nila yung lasa ng residual chlorine. But definitely that will also be dissolved later on. Kaya kailangan inumin po nila yon rather than taking a positive a water that is considered to be positive for E. coli. And for those who don't like the taste naman po of chlorine, of course, the basic principle of boiling is also being advocated at the household level po, just to decontaminate po that positive water, drinking water.
Dr. Bianzon, sige, chlorinate at boil. Paano kung kulay tsokolate yung tubig? Ganun pa rin yun. Lalagyan mo pa rin ng tablet, inumin mo kahit na kulay tsokolate. So what are you gonna do in that case? What will be your advice to those people?
And can I follow up that question?
Go ahead po.
Pag ganun yung
Madam Chair.
kulay, pero na-test mo na and okay, wala na siyang E. coli, anong ibig sabihin nun? It's just a color issue na lang? Out of curiosity, kasi if I was there, tapos sabihin sa akin nung scientist, ano na yan, test na siya ng negative E. coli, okay na yan. Siyempre sasabihin, ba't ganun yung kulay?
Kulay brown.
Explanation.
Yeah.
Actually, ma'am, it's not just when we speak of the testing of water, we're following a set of standards, the Philippine National Standards for Drinking Water. Now, it looks into first physical characteristics or physical
Yung clarity, yung
odor,
ano ba
taste,
tawag doon?
odor po,
Colorless, odorless.
color, yes,
Yung
appearance.
mga ganun.
Yes, ma'am. And then, meron po yung,
So, hindi papasa yung kulay tsokolate.
yes, kala ko po, kasabi ni Sir, positive lang for E. coli. Because
So,
minsan,
may iba pa.
may iba pa po.
Box pa lang sa E. coli.
Okay.
That's my question to you.
Yes, ma'am.
Kulay niya ganon, you need to
Hindi.
test that for something else pa rin.
Yes po. Actually, there are water na clear looking as if parang kalang malinis. Pero when you test for microbiological test, which is that of the E. coli, dun lumalabas po yung positive. So no pa rin po yung for drinking.
Baka naman you can come up with an FAQ na pasado sa amin ni Senator Tulfo na kami naiintindihan namin, madali rin maipaliwanag sa tao, so wala nang confusion, di ba? Kasi if we left it at that, kung hindi siya nag-follow up question ng kulay, di ibabalandra ko na mamaya yan na ayun naman pala, pag na-test ng E. coli, tapos na yun pala, may iba pa palang test. So hindi ganun ka lawak din ang understanding ko, because we are just engaging in isang tanong, isang sagot, di ba? So baka you can give this to us in an easy to read, a 10-point na, anong gagawin mo? Ano ba dapat ang testing standard na dapat sinusundan ng lahat ng munisipyo? And kung ikaw ay isang nanay, ano yung, ano ba tawag doon? Yung, ano ba to? What's the, ano yung mga, what can raise your suspicion? Diba? Ano ba yung titingnan mo? Yun nga, yung kulay, yung amoy ba, yung itsura, at ano pa ba? Diba? Lasa, of course, lasa. And on the note ng lasa, there is a documentary on Netflix. Very interesting. Documentary on different subject matters. But the first, anong artistang to? Who? Yes. Zac Efron, galing mo. Si Zac Efron, na, di ba yung first topic niya was water? Nagpunta siya sa mga water expert and they taste water. So on that note, it is possible for water to taste different, but they're all okay. And that, again, that should be explained to people. Like you said, may ibang ayaw nila. Ako may bottled water ako na hindi ko gusto yung lasa. Hindi ko siya babanggitin dahil hindi ibig sabihin na hindi siya malinis. Ibig sabihin lang, hindi ko type yung lasa ng tubig na yun. But it should be explained, diba? Kasi ano yung acceptable na range ng different taste ng water at hindi na acceptable dahil delikado na yan na ganyan ng lasa. Maasim, mapait, mga whatever. Yun. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you for those reminders po, ma'am.
Makadagdag lang
Thank
po,
you.
Madam Chair, doon sa Balilihan, ang ni-request kasi ng ilang mga residente doon and even some proponents na gustong magkaroon ng shift sa ownership yung supplier ng water is from deep well or groundwater to spring water. Ano po yung takeaway nyo dyan? Na, is that the same thing, yung spring water and groundwater? Pareho lang ho ba yan? Or mas safer, which one is safer?
Sir, yung terms of safety po, kasi magbe-base po yan nga po doon sa the national standards of drinking water. So tinitest po yan, but we have these so-called doubtful sources na kung saan pagka mga open bodies of water po, they're usually considered as doubtful sources po.
Okay. And, Madam Chair, yung isang concern ko na lang, I address ko naman sa WRMO and I've heard kanina nasabi na merong 14.6 billion pesos na budget to all barangays sa 1,374 projects to San Visayas, Mindanao, and mostly these are ground water and deep well water. Tama ba? Bakit ho deep well water and groundwater? Kasi itong mga groundwater, they can easily be contaminated by feces from animals, from human feces. mas madali pong ma-contaminate yun versus other source of water na pwede pong pagkukunan.
You're correct, Senator. I will have to qualify lang that groundwater can be accessed at various levels. No, in most cases, and probably it's what we have in Balilihan are shallow wells. No, when you have deep wells, no, greater than 60 feet, sometimes 100 meters in depth, they're actually of the best quality waters because they have been filtered through the ground when rainwater percolated, no, to the aquifer. In most cases, however, our communities do not have the necessary instruments and equipment to drill, no, very deep wells, no, to access clean and safe water. And therefore they resort to shallow wells. Yun yung problema, yung naguhukay lang sila.
Okay, ang nangyayari po kasi sa Balilian, every time na umuulan, konting ulan lang daw, yung tubig nila ay nagkukulay tsokolate. So what does it mean?
Most likely it is a shallow well. So pagka umulan, yung nagpercolate na tubig ulan, may kasama siyang soil and other materials, kaya humahalo.
So what
siya
is your
doon.
recommendation now, Dr. David and Dr. Vianzon? In that case, hindi lang po ito sa Balilihan, kundi sa iba pang lugar na nakapagsumbong sa akin, mga residente, na kunting ulan lang yung kanilang tubig sa gripo ay nagkukulay tsokolate, kulay itim. And it happens all the time. Alam niyo naman dito sa atin sa Pilipinas, panayang ulan. So tuwing may ulan, yung mga tao hindi nakakainom ng tubig kung nagkakasakit. So what is your recommendation? Aside from boiling the water before you drink or before you use it for cooking, etc.
Sir, siguro yung technology, perhaps I'll refer later to my engineer. There's such a thing as filtration, no, techniques na kung saan po pagka ganun ang itsura, nire-recommend talaga na magkaroon ng filtration technologies before pumasok yung tubig sana sa household. And then pagdating po sa household, meron din pong intervention gagawin mismo yung household itself. So in the filtration techniques, I think that's embedded dun the way it is constructed, no, the way it has been built, yung mga water system na yon. So sabi nga po ni Dr. David, may mga seepage na nangyayari, kaya nga po siguro nagkakaroon ng gross contamination coming from the nearby soil, especially during rainy season, yung seepage po yon. So dapat meron built-in na filtration technology po, sir.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome anytime. I'll proceed with questions, no? But if you have any of your own follow-up, please just let me know. I direct my question to Neda. In a previous statement, you had mentioned the percentage of 45% of the population relying on point sources for their water, which is rivers, streams, wells, peddlers, and other sources, and that these are susceptible to contamination. Can you verify that? Kasi
Yung
you are
nasa
quoted as saying
PowerPoint
that
ko po,
eh.
ma'am, a while ago, 90, around
Can we
90% po
access
yung
it again?
access sa safe water.
Say that again, sorry.
Around 90% po yung may access sa safe water ngayon.
90.
Of families, 90% of families.
So saan kaya galing tong 45%? Hindi ka familiar?
Ma'am, yan po siguro yung breakdown nung, I think, 90%. Pero
That
if that,
seems to
if
be
that-
different kasi nakalagay dito, 45% of the population rely on these point sources which are susceptible to contamination. So the rest of the population, that's 54%, who have access to safe water. So 54, so ang layo pa rin sa 90 mo. Ano kayang, how
Yes,
do
ma'am,
we
we got that
marry
from-
those terms?
the APIS of the PSA, yung 90+%.
So can any of your staff confirm this? Because this is in a news report quoting you. I'll give you a few.
Sige
Please
po.
confer kasi it's either bawiin nyo to kasi kayo cited dito and we stick with what you're saying na 90, or we dig further and find out where that came from. Go ahead and check with
Sige
your staff. I'll excuse you for a bit. Go ahead.
Yes, ma'am.
Anyway, does anyone have any figures to that effect? Ilan ba talaga? Kasi sabi natin, Or is it, alam ko na, baka because sabi nyo, 11 million do not have access. O di ba ang population natin 110. So therefore, 90 have access. Okay, alam ko na. Ako na nag-solve ng problem mo. But I will go back to that 45. Where does that come from? Because all this 45, okay, how do you dissect, first of all, this 11 million lack access to clean water? Because these figures might still be able to stand independently of each other kasi sabi 45% of the population rely on point sources. So it could be that they have access, but they are still relying on these other point sources that are susceptible to contamination. Tama? But that's tama ba? But nahanap mo na ba? Kasi
Looking for it. If we can
Sige.
have
For your
the article.
information, this is Makati Business Club quoting NEDA in an article dated February 21 of this year.
We'll look into it, Your Honor.
So paano ba? We will not rely. Sana if you can look into it in the last 20 minutes that I have here para lang. Kasi I'm being fair to you. I will not requote that if I'm interviewed. But if there is a basis for me to assume this is true, but wala kayong, hindi nyo naman kinwestiyon yan, lumabas naman sa dyaryo yan. Pag hindi totoo, pag mali yung mga figures, magbigay kayo kaagad. Kasi kaming mga lawmakers, we rely on this data. Anyway, okay. Then let me take it further and anyone can answer, no? So so we're now confused with that number, okay? What's your guess, Dr. David? What is your
So
educated
I talked
guess?
to Dr. David over there.
The two Dr. Davids.
Hindi rin na kami familiar dun sa 45%, but when you said point sources, what we call as level 1 water supply would be you get water where it is found. In
Okay.
other words, yung alam mo yung hand
Malapit
pump.
lang sa'yo.
No, I mean yung hand pump
Okay.
o kaya balon. Those are point sources called level 1. Here in Metro Manila, our source is called level 3 water supply, meaning that the source is somewhere, Angat Dam,
And then it's
and
piped.
then it's piped to your house. No?
Yes.
Level 3 is definitely much safer than level
Yes,
1 supply.
yes.
So I'm thinking baka level 1 supply yung
Hindi, kasi ang
45.
nakasulat dito sa article, di ba 45% yung rely on point sources. So the balance is 54%. So it says, of the 54% who have access to safe water, only 15% rely on a pipe distribution network. And 11% rely on communal fault system. So the balance is what? It's still safe, but less contaminated. How do I digest all that? If it requires further study, para lang maayos, let's discuss one set of figures, di ba? Kasi ang hirap nun. After the budget, you will be reporting sino yung may safe supply, tapos iba yung numbers natin dito. And this came from Makati Business Club. So, syempre, people tend to have a certain level of comfort when they read this, and they're quoting NEDA as their source. So anyway, let me move on, no? Ano yung level 2? Because you mentioned 1 and you level 2. Baka si 2 to.
communal.
Ano yun?
There's a source, for
Okay.
example, a spring in the mountains. It's piped to a single location.
So there is a
where
pipe.
There's a
Okay.
pipe, and then it's stored in a reservoir. And people go there,
But
and
that's
fetch
still more
water.
common in rural areas. Not
Yeah, oh yes.
or even
Very common.
even in cities outside of Metro Manila, may ganun
No,
pa, hindi
no.
na. Rural na talaga.
Mostly level 3 na tayo sa cities.
So almost all cities in the country are level 3.
Yes.
And level 2 and level 1 would be outside of the cities.
Yes.
Okay, okay.
And when we talk about cities, we're talking about the poblacion area. They will be under level 3 water supply system.
But it's possible
outside
within
lang.
the city.
Within the city, may
So
level 2.
there are huge cities within the city, in the outskirts. I'll see you. Yeah. Within the cities, dun sa mga outskirts,
Correct.
balik level 1
Level
and
2 and
level 2.
yes.
Okay, okay. So I feel like there is a lot of work that should be done. And Dr. Vianzon, I note na Health Promotion Bureau kayo ha. Lagi kong ina-assure na may budget kayo. And if you need a bigger budget, can you recommend what that is? Because there's so much that goes into communication eh. So like the importance of people understanding that the quality of their water is directly related to their sanitation practices. And then I'll tie that in now because when I asked, remember earlier na saan gagastusin itong 14 billion and you said these are barangay and municipal project, but these are water sources, not sanitation solutions. O yon. So, what is our budget or what is our current budget and what is our desired budget for the sanitation? Because parang it's like a vicious cycle, right? Meron na ba tayo nun? Do you have those numbers?
Ma'am, in 2023, we
And sorry, I'll take note that I think it's you also, Dr. David, who specifically, sorry, no. Now I don't know. Who was it? Who was it who presented na ngayon, si Neda, ikaw, ang nagsabi na ngayon, pinagsasama nyo na ang discussion ng safe water supply and sanitation. Di ba? Kasi dati hiwalay. O, di yun na nga. So since magkasama na, pati yung numbers dapat magkasama and even your presentation, Dr. David, should include na rin sana or your lobbying for funding should include also sanitation kasi otherwise may disjunct din kayo dahil yung orchestrator mo hindi naman naka-align dun sa composition mo. Yes? Yes, okay. Did you want to add something?
Ma'am, may I just confirm yung 45%?
Oh,
I agree with Yusek David na it's level 1 point source po. It's taken, it appears to be taken from the master plan.
Okay, so can somebody now explain this to me in a coherent manner na kasama dun si 11 million, kasama to, explain it to me coherently para isang messaging lang tayo. It is not my goal na pag in-interview ko, guguluhin ko yung sinabi nyo or iipitin ko kayo. Hindi ko kayo gaganunin, pero ayusin natin yung figures natin. So, should I ask other questions while you put that together? Or you can tell me now? I want you to tell it to me in a flow that I understand and can explain to my 12, now 13-year-old son.
I'll try, ma'am, but
Any.
Yusek David ba, sorry to throw the ball at you.
Whoever.
You're the scientist.
Madam Chair. Madam Chair.
The other doctor David.
Magkaiba po kasi Madam Chair. Yung ano po kasi yung level 1 to 3, although we adopted that based on the NEDA issuance, no. Ito po yung different levels of access or service to water, no. Kaya nga po kung level 1 point source lang po yan, no? And then level 2 is communal source. And then sabi nga ni Yusek CP David, yung level 3, ito yung pipe, no? So the water we access directly yung household through the pipes, no? Through the faucet. So yun po yung so in that case, Madam Chair, yung 45% na sinasabi po ay dinedetermine lang na yung level 1 na point sources ay level of service is 45%. No, yun po, Madam Chair, no? And then, yung po kasing access naman dun sa safe water, no? Iba po kasi yung number na yan kasi sabi nga natin is iba-iba pong source yan, no? Iba-ibang source. Be it can be a groundwater, it can be spring, it can be rivers, no? Ang nagiging issue lang dahil unsafe, no? Unsafe yung tubig na yan kasi nga po primarily hindi siya natitreat, no? May absence po ng treatment. So magkaiba pong number siya, Madam Chair. Yung isa po is yung type of level of service, no? Paano na-access yung tubig. And then naman po yung isa, yung sinasabi nga nating 11%, yung kina-qualify po, gaano ka-safe yung iniinom ng mga tao po. I hope I'm clear, Madam Chair.
Well, you just added that last statement to the 3 levels of services. So meaning to say, the 11% that don't have access to clean water are most like, it's happening somewhere here in the level 1 and 2, correct?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Saying that nga. Kasi nga, how would I know? How would anyone else know? And then otherwise, we have different numbers. And even you, it took you a while to figure that out, di ba? So meaning to say, even though, and this is where I'm still confused, 45% ang level 1. Not to say that everything that they take out of the point source is not clean. Diba? Kasi meron namang clean. Ako, umiinom ako ng tubig pag nasa bundok ako, parang bahala na Lord. Pero mukha namang malinis, wala namang amoy. But I do drink water, fresh flowing water. And when you hike with the locals, they'll tell you na yan malinis. Diba? They'll tell you naman eh. So the assumption is, no, I have no assumption, but of the 45%, parang you're saying na a bulk of this is where that 11% will come from. Parang ganun. Kasi the 11% is the general number na hindi sila may access sa safe drinking water. So if you now say, 11 million, which sorry is about 11 million, tama, that number came from 11 million eh. That number came from 11 million, which is similar to 11%. Because nga, you're not assuming na lahat itong point source is unclean. May portion lang dyan na unclean. So, saan pa lang kaya nanggaling sa 11% per 11 million? Saan pa rin galing yun? Paano nyo na ano yun? Na-extract yung 11 million?
Ma'am, if I may conjecture, yung sa ano po kasi sa PSA, sila po yung nagsusurvey nung safety nung tubig. So sa kanila 91.6 yung sa safe sources. And so that balance, that should be the 11 million na hindi nakaka-access po nung safe quote-unquote source. Which is a different thing nga po gaya ng sinabi ni Sir Bill. If you look at access, iba po yung safety dun sa level of access na 1, 2, 3.
You to fix all
Madam
these
Chair.
figures. Kasi tuturo ko lang naman sa inyo nakasulat dun eh na of the... Oh, kaya nga eh, 'di ba? So, iwan ko na lang 'yan sa inyo. Okay, ganito na lang. It's 2:51. I have session at 3 and don't make me run anymore. I'd rather walk out and arrive there calmly. So, we can wrap this up because we do have to have a second hearing. Okay. We will have a second hearing and paano ba? You'll advise them who we want to be here in person, but maybe others can be available online. Because I don't want you to have to sacrifice half of your day. So if we can work it out that online, okay naman sa akin. Kasi you are the main movers, no? But we have a lot of others to invite, mga academicians, mga private groups, NGOs, the franchise holders, and so on and so forth. Okay. Anyone want to make a statement? If not, I will suspend our hearing. Thank you very much, everyone.